All right, welcome to the very first episode of Behind the Fox. I'm Josh Feagans,
And I'm Katie Feagans.
and we're here to give you a behind-the-scenes look at the Fox Valley and the people that make it run. We're going to start the show by talking a little bit about how Katie and I got started in our personal injury law practice. Back in March of 2020, we decided to open our doors March 1st, as a matter of fact. About 2 weeks later, the world turned upside down. COVID happened, and we didn't know which way was up. Luckily, we pulled through, and here we are today. But the next few years taught us a ton of information about how to run a business and what it's like running that business within the Fox Valley communities of St. Charles, Geneva, and Batavia. And that's what our podcast is about, the behind-the-scenes look of what the professionals, what the doctors, what the folks running the show, so to speak, the driving our community, what their lives look like behind the scenes. That's what we're here to talk about. Katie and I are going to talk to you today about our experiences opening our business during COVID, as I said. But in the coming episodes, we hope to bring you local physicians, entrepreneurs, community leaders, and professionals across the Fox Valley, like I said, St. Charles, Geneva, and Batavia, to give you a behind-the-scenes look at what they're doing in their lives and how they're making the Fox Valley run. So, Katie, the very first thing we're going to talk about today is, in fact, what it was like opening this business back in March of 2020 during COVID. Do you recall that?
I do, definitely.
All right. So let's start with a little bit of background. So give the viewers and the listeners, Katie, just a little bit of information about what we were doing before we decided to open our business.
So before we opened our business, we met in law school. We were young and dumb and very excited about the future. And we met right after our first year of law school. And we were pretty much right away pretty much all in with each other. So we finished up our second year and we got married. We had our third year in law school and we ended up graduating, taking the bar, and then we started life as young adults downtown. You started with a really exceptional business firm, and then you ended up switching over pretty quickly to an insurance defense firm right downtown. And I went and worked for an insurance company. I wasn't sure if I wanted to practice in the traditional sense. And we both learned a lot and we grew a lot. And then I ended up switching over to an insurance defense firm. I don't know if you remember, across the street from you. I kept following behind you across the street from you. And then when we'd been married about 6 years and we started our family, moved out to the suburbs, and I stayed home. And we pretty quickly had 3 mini us's to live with and to manage. And then I remember you were with their firm in Geneva, your partner, and you were growing and you were busy. And you had one of our really good friends who was working with you, and you were talking about the things she was doing and how she was switching and moving on. And you said, gosh, I could really use some help. You know, she's wonderful and this is what she does. And I said, well, I think I could do some of that. I think I'd love to help you. I'd love to work with you again. And then from there, I feel like the world has just been growing and expanding and moving really fast. So then you were my boss for 5 years.
First and only time.
And then we had this shift where, we had grown so much in our practices together. We decided that, hey, we're doing this marriage thing pretty good. We might as well take a shot at being partners in business and in law as well.
So everyone, Katie is a bit modest here. So we were working together for about 5 years. She might call me her boss during that time period. I don't quite know that's how it worked, but I'll set the stage. We had been we'd moved out to the suburbs to work for me to join a business law firm. We were doing very, very well, and we'd done pretty well with our personal injury work. It was growing, and Katie came on, and when that happened, Katie came on and started working with those personal injury cases. Our business skyrocketed. It just kind of went bonkers. And fast forward about 4 or 5 years later, we had a huge decision to make. We had to make a decision about whether or not we were going to continue doing what we were doing or just kind of switch over and give this personal injury thing a chance. And we made that decision over the course of really like maybe 10, 14 days at the end of 2019, right? And very quickly, we jumped into 2020 in January and February. We were scouting locations, looking for vendors to help us with marketing and IT and human resources and insurance and all that kind of stuff. And very quickly, 2 months later, you fast forward and March 1st happens and we open our doors. And then 2 weeks later, COVID kind of closed those doors temporarily. It was a very interesting time, very stressful time. Looking back there, Katie, back in like March of 2020, we opened the doors. What was the most exciting thing you were thinking about in engaging in our new practice?
I think it was the adventure of it, right? Everything was new and exciting, and getting to make our decisions together and to work our cases, and for me, it was learning how to run a business because I hadn't done that before, and learning how to manage people, and all of the excitement, I think, with this shiny new penny that we got to work on together.
That's right. So it was very exciting, and all those things kind of coming together where you're creating this business idea and business plan and all that kind of stuff, and then getting a couple weeks to put it together. So fast forward a couple weeks, now we're in mid-March, and across the newscast it says quarantine, stay home, shut down, all that jazz. That happens. What's your biggest fear at that point?
My biggest fear when it first shut down was just the uncertainty, not knowing, what it was going to mean for us, for our family, what it was going to mean for our business, what it was going to mean for life in general. There was so much we didn't know. And I remember going into the office, and, it's still a new office, and it was still really, everything was fresh. Everything was kind of figuring out, okay, should my desk really go here? Should my chair really go here? Should this be arranged in this way? And if you'll remember, we had this really great office. It was on the river with these beautiful windows to be able to look out on the river. But we were still figuring out, okay, do we want the couch to go here? Do the chairs go here? Should we be hanging things on the walls? And then all of a sudden, and so proud of it, right? To have people come and see us, to have people get to see this new adventure that we were taking on. And then all of a sudden, finding out, well, we might not even be able to go into the office. We might not be able to have people come see us. And so much of our business was so face-to-face with people then, especially, that it was a lot of upheaval. And then having our 3 kids at home, at the time, I was just thinking about this today, 10, 6, and 3. Like, they were babies. And how does this work with school? And how does this work with, taking care of everybody? And, do we get to still go into the office? Are we allowed to? Who gets to make sure that everyone is in Kleenex and toilet paper, right? All that stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because we don't think about those things. Well, sometimes we think about things pre-COVID and post-COVID a little bit. But if we think about pre-COVID, all new business was signed up face-to-face. No one docu-signed a retainer agreement. You didn't talk to someone over the phone to sign them up generally. If a new client came to us, we either met them in the office or we went to their home or wherever they were. We discussed the case with them and we had them sign a paper contract to work with us. You fast forward to COVID, and COVID introduces all these things really to our industry that everyone knew about already, but we were not using. DocuSign, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, all that kind of stuff. And it goes from a very face-to-face type business to a very technology-driven interaction. And getting our clients comfortable with that, because our clients run the spectrum from very, very young to very, very old and everything in between. And everyone has a different level of sophistication with this technology, and they still do, right? So that was a huge jump. I'll tell you what I remember the most about that time period is, we were very fortunate to have an existing business. We weren't starting from scratch. So many times people open up their doors day one in a business, whether it's a HVAC business or a dental office or a chiropractic office or a clothing store or whatever, and you're looking for your ideal customer. Luckily, we already had our customers. We already had our clients. And so we were able to hit the ground running a little bit, right? And so we had a good docket of cases, and we were fortunate in that respect. Looking ahead, though, what were like maybe the top two challenges you saw or you experienced then in building our practice there the first 3 or 4 months while navigating COVID?
I think managing flow was really kind of tricky because it felt like there was this period of time where everyone was frozen. And that was the insurance companies. That was, everyone just trying to get their footing, right? And then all of a sudden, everyone kind of got really sick of being closed in, or all of a sudden the insurance companies opened up with money because they had so much more money. And suddenly it was this huge rush to settle these cases. They were throwing money at us. I mean, sometimes they were saying to us, calling us up and just out of the blue offering us money, which it was great, but that's not our usual, And to have the clients then, it was kind of the same thing with the clients. It was, the clients that were not getting in accidents for a while because they weren't driving, because they weren't going places, they weren't getting hurt, they weren't doing stuff. But then all of a sudden we would get this rush of cases because, and really significant cases, because everyone was like on this almost like a high, driving, or there were people who were high or doing, that kind of thing. And all of a sudden the accidents were 10 times worse than historically.
Yeah. So for our listeners, right? So you got to think we're opening up this new practice. It's me, Katie. And at that point in time, we had one paralegal and probably 2 or 3 contractors we were working with for various things like marketing or insurance or what have you. So we had a small team, right? And we had lofty ideals. And so we get into here, and for the first 3 or 4 months, we go from signing up several cases a month to just a trickle. It really slowed down dramatically. And that was probably the biggest concern I had, was were we ever going to catch up the cases we missed? Because if you think, we had a good inventory of cases coming in, so we knew we were always going to have cases we could resolve moving forward in 2020 and into 2021. But the life cycle of our cases, I mean, really from the date of injury, the first time we're going to have an opportunity to really try to resolve that case is about 7-8 months out. Once they're done with treatment, once we're able to gather all the records and put a case together to give to the insurance company. And so that life cycle is kind of how we forecasted. But with 4-5 months of cases that were kind of missed, that forecasting was getting off a little bit. So that was concerning to me. Now, my concerns also centered around the fact that we didn't really pivot. We were always going to do some business law, but business law became much more a part of my practice in 2020, or stayed a part of my practice in 2020 than I imagined. And so luckily though, because it kind of kept the cash flow happening when those new insurance cases didn't come in that period of time until like June or July of 2020, when the insurance companies really weren't settling cases because they didn't know what was going on. So, I mean, getting up to speed and understanding all the new rules and regulations from a COVID standpoint that these businesses were experiencing, trying to understand their needs. I'd worked with many of them for years, but not on a day-to-day basis. And it went from working on a, every now and again basis to working day-to-day with these companies while still trying to build a new practice, while still trying to figure out how to push our injury cases and get them the proper things they needed, from medical treatment to, what do we do now that the courts are closed and all that kind of stuff. And then, managing our staff and managing at home. I remember, and this is you touched upon this, Katie, but I remember, there was a period of time where there was no school, and now we had to figure out homeschooling. And so I think you can probably relate a little bit, but talk to the listeners a little bit about what we did relative to homeschooling and how we managed our time in and out of the office.
So with our homeschooling, we had to really shut down our world because my mom lives with us. Some listeners, my mom lives with us because Josh invited her to live with us. And we were really worried. She has some health issues. And so we were super concerned that she was going to be very high risk. And so we went from kids are in school, kids are in activities, kids are in our little guy was in preschool, but it was, we had really good supports, and we had all of these wonderful people who were able to come and be in our lives, and all of a sudden that had to shut down, right? And so all of a sudden we're sitting there trying to manage our cases. I remember being so worried about the people that we work with so much. The doctors, are they allowed to be treating their patients? Or are they allowed to see them? Being so worried about our clients. They can't get into the doctor because it's not safe to be open right now. But we were so incredibly lucky, and this one I give you so much credit for. We shut down the world, and we were trying to navigate, online learning with, little kids that don't know how to manage the computer because we were not letting them have access to them at the time. They were so little. And then, trying to protect everybody, not let anybody get sick, not have it be an issue. As they're little kids that want to go out and play and want to be, they're used to being active and doing stuff. And I remember you came home one day and you said, so I think we need to bring in somebody to be helping with this whole situation. I think it was after probably, I had told you about how our daughter had been in this, she was trying to get scheduled for this Zoom class, and her teacher was just really insistent. Gigi really needs to get onto the computer. And I was like, okay. And we were sitting there at the kitchen counter, and I'm like, we're going to do this. We're going to get you scheduled. We're going to get you on this computer, and you're going to learn something. And I'm not going to have to be the one who has to figure out, how to teach you the lesson plan for the day. And I remember I was sitting there and I was trying to manage my computer, and then Gigi was over here. And I just remember listening to the teacher, hey, girlfriend, how you doing? What's going on? And I was like, I can't do this. This is not going to work, because I can't be trying to help our clients and try to teach our 5-6-year-old how to, work on the computer and learn how to, make it through these lesson plans. So anyway, jumping back to that, I remember you came home not long after that and you said, okay, so we have this client. Remember her? And I was like, oh my gosh, she's lovely. And I'm actually wearing the band that she gave me. And I'll talk about that another time. But her daughter, turns out, she was a barista at your favorite coffee shop that you were going to. And you said, you'll never believe this. It's her daughter. She's fabulous. We knew the family. And you said, I think we should do this. And as usually the case with us, I was like, oh, I don't know if we should do that. That's change. That might be asking a lot. I don't know. Is that the right decision? You're like, yes, I think this is the right decision. And she came in. She was fabulous. I remember Grayson, little guy, and I think he was probably 4 at the time. So he's met her all of 20 minutes at this point. And I remember he goes, Maddie, I love you. And no hesitation. And she turned, she goes, Grayson, I love you too. And I was like, okay, we can do this.
So for some perspective for the viewers, so this happened probably toward the end of spring of 2020, after like the initial homeschool phase wore out. At that point in time, we were trying to divide and conquer, so to speak. So Katie would stay home with the kids during the morning while I went to the office, and she would do the homeschooling in the morning, and then I'd come back in the afternoon, and Katie would go to the office in the afternoon.
I think I blocked this out, not to interrupt you, but I think I blocked this part out.
Right. This is the difficult part. So I would do the homeschooling in the afternoon, and then we still each then had to find a couple hours that evening to work. So it turned into some very long days, and like she said, very stressful trying to navigate the new technology on our part, but also the kids' technology and figuring out how to get them their lessons conducted and all that kind of stuff. So fast forward, probably before the summer started, I said, we need a nanny that can step in and do the homeschooling if COVID continues to go on the entire next year. Because at that point, May, June of 2020, no one knew, right? So that was the big challenge. I think the biggest challenge we experienced during COVID was trying to, as many people did, trying to run our business, a new business, while still managing our family. And one of the I think probably one of the ideal things we did do was bring in that person. And we, even though school reopened that next fall, we did decide to homeschool our kids using her, a recent college graduate. And it really turned out to be one of the dumbest lucky moves we might have ever made, because the attention and the knowledge that our kids gained over that year put them like 2 to 3 times ahead most of their peers when they finally had to go back to school. So that was kind of interesting. So listeners, this is our first podcast, by the way. So you're going to see some notes in front of us. You're going to see us trying to, walk our way through a little bit. We might seem like we're walking in the dark a little bit, but we're not totally hapless. And we've got some notes here that we've put together. And one of the notes that is there to be asked is, at any point in that time, let's say March 16th until the cases started to settle, like July or August, any regrets, any concerns, anything less than total confidence that like we were going to make this happen?
Try asking me that again. So any regrets? I mean, that's life, right?
No, not regrets, I suspect, but really any, as you look back, were you sitting with, or did you have any regret at that moment, any concerns at that moment, any fears in that moment that we weren't going to be able to make this happen?
No, I have to say, I think that I was uncertain about a lot of things with the world in general. And, how do we make this like more of the process? Like, how do we navigate this? But I mean, I think that I just had absolute confidence in you. I think because you are so confident, and just thinking, we can do this together. We can figure this out, right? Might not have all the answers, but we certainly don't. And we might make some mistakes. Certainly did, certainly will. But being able to say, hey, at the end of the day, we're in this together, right? We're in this boat together. We're making these decisions together. If I don't know the right answer, you probably will. And if you don't, hopefully I do, or together we're going to figure it out. And I think that's kind of how we approach life in general.
Yeah, I always looked at it from a karma perspective. I never really had any concern we weren't going to be fine, because when you do good work and you treat people right, people tend to gravitate towards you. And that seems to be, knock on wood, the saving grace of our career. We're very good attorneys, I think. You're very good. I do a fine job. But
I think you're great.
Thank you. When we treat people well and we do a good job, then word spread, of course, but karma kind of brings people into your life, the existing people who need you more maybe at that moment. So I remember looking back too, it was, it wasn't just the business law that was there, and it wasn't just, eventually some cases settled, but we were fortunate enough to take on a nice piece of litigation, of all places, centered in Texas. Well, Texas never really shut down, so it allowed us to continue to operate on that case, which was a very large case, and resolved pretty favorably for the client a couple of years later in an arbitration in Texas. So that was helpful. But I never really had any concerns either. It was an interesting question we had here, but I didn't really have any big concerns. I was fairly certain between you and I we were going to make it work. And make it work, just to give you some perspective, we go from having Katie and I and a paralegal to now having 12 or 13 staff members, 4 attorneys, 4 paralegals, all that kind of stuff now, and running a bustling practice that primarily does just do personal injury.
It's funny though, when we first left, we said it's just going to be us and our paralegal. And that's where we don't have a crystal ball. And you just have to have faith, and you have to keep doing the right thing. What is the next right thing? And, keep showing up, keep fighting, keep doing what's in front of you. And I think the other thing at that time that was tremendously reassuring for me was that our clients still wanted to send other people to us, and so it creates this really rewarding world where you have these people you care about, and then you find out that you do make a difference for them, so much so that they even want to send their friends, their family. Sometimes it's somebody that they see down the street and they're like, oh, you should call them, and it's really funny. So sometimes we get clients who are like, I don't know, it's just this person who was in the grocery store and they overheard me saying something. They're like, hey, you should call Josh and Katie,
It's interesting the perspective you give there. I do remember just wanting to have a very simple practice and working on our cases and having more free time with our family and more free time for ourselves and all that other stuff that goes with having flexibility in life. And it's funny because I remember a lot of people during COVID obtained some ultimate flexibility. Some people weren't working for a while, good or bad. And then, the world then transitioned to a lot of remote work and those different types of things. We never did remote work. We were in the office every day. And we've been busy every day, thankfully, since COVID. What I find interesting about the growth that you talked about, whereas we wanted to be just, you, me, and a paralegal in our cases, is that we continued to have people coming and asking us for help. And we never said no if we knew a way to help them. And that continues to this day. If someone asks us for help and it's in our wheelhouse and we can help them, we're going to figure out a way to do it. That's how we are wired, I think. And a mentor of ours tells a story. Mike Morris, who is a great injury attorney and runs a great business in Michigan, said some colleagues of his once told him that, Mike, you have an obligation to get big enough to help all the people that need your help. And that makes sense to me. I didn't think about it in those terms in 2020 or even as we were growing in 2021 or 2022. But you do have an obligation to those people that you're able to help to get big enough to have the resources to be able to help anyone that comes on your door knocking, deserving, and you can help them. You should be able to do that. What are your thoughts there?
I think it comes back to something that we talk to our kids about, and I think that we believe in with our community and just kind of our guiding principle, and that is we believe in service. We believe in giving and contributing and helping wherever we can in the world. And that goes along with it. It goes along with also kind of your karma point from before. When you do good and you put good into the world, that comes back to you as well. And I think having that alignment for us is incredibly important.
What was the one thing that someone listening to this podcast, whether a resident of the Fox Valley or another business owner, a community leader, can take away? What was the one thing you learned about yourself as a business person, as an attorney during COVID that you still use today?
When you live in a community and you are wanting to contribute and wanting to be an integral part of that community, I think that it helps you know what the right answer is in facing choices and planning and what to do next. And being so focused on the Fox Valley and the people around here helps us, I think, to be thinking, how do we take care of our neighbors? How do we serve? How do we make the world a better place, hopefully, from what we're finding? How do we help people, find answers? And I think it's tremendously rewarding, but it's also super helpful in figuring out, okay, what is the right next step here?
I think that's a great point. So one of the reasons we chose to live in the Fox Valley, as well as open our business in the Fox Valley, is because it is a community, right? And I think during COVID, we really experienced that to a larger scale. And since COVID, maybe even more so, the community exists, and it's not just there to go shopping at a store or to go get your taxes done here or to whatever. People really want to help you. People want to be your neighbor. It's an unusual scenario that you don't always get in a larger metropolitan area. And so we live in this little niche bubble, so to speak, where we have all these wonderful people that want to help one another, that want to be part of a community, that want to make the world a little bit better, even if it's just one person at a time. And And just to foreshadow a little bit, I mean, on this podcast coming up, you will hear the stories. We will be bringing on a lot of those people that make this community that much better, either one person or one act at a time, and provide such value to the members of this community through what they've created and the service they provide and the perspectives they have. So that's very interesting. But it's your answer to that question is a nice segue into the purpose of what we're doing to be part of a community, right? Why did we choose to open a law practice in Geneva or St. Charles as opposed to the city of Chicago, for instance, or what have you? And that drills it right on the head. All right, so what we want to talk about next a little bit, because I'm sure you're all very interested, is what are the challenges of building a business and raising a family at the same time? So Katie, finish this sentence. Working with my spouse is blank.
Tremendously rewarding.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
So
Josh, how about you?
Working with my spouse is probably the greatest opportunity I've had in my life, honestly. So people ask us this question all the time, right? And of course they want the answer that it's challenging, we argue, we fight. Yes, but all business partners argue and fight. All business partners have disagreements. So then you couple that with a husband and wife, and every husband and wife has some disagreements. So of course there are going to be disagreements. And I would say probably the most challenging part of that relationship is having a disagreement in one area of our life bleed into the other, because inevitably will, right? But it's really been the greatest opportunity of my life because it's a very, and I've told this to people, it's a very unique thing to have a business partner who not only knows you inside and out, but is truly 100% behind you, because whatever you do, they see that success immediately, right? Not to get too dollars and cents on people, but when you have a business with other partners, you're splitting the profit. It's going to several different households. In our business, it comes to one household. So no matter how well I do versus no matter how well you do, we can cheer on one another because we know your success is going to directly correlate to, whatever in our lives. And so that's very wonderful in my experience, at least.
And I would agree. I think it's that alignment, right? And also knowing, hey, I've got your back. You've got my back, right? There doesn't have to be the situation that I think when you're not married to somebody, partners in life and partners in law and all of that. We get to row together. Truly, it doesn't have to be, you heading this direction, me heading this direction, or forwards and backwards or whatever.
So the next question that the powers that be wanted us to ask is the worst question in the world. It's a trick question in this area. And the question is this: who's the boss? And on my sheet, it literally says LOL, so laugh out loud. I'm not even going to have that question be asked, but I'll tell you this. Katie has the bigger office. Katie tells me what to do in the morning. Katie tells me when to be home. So you figure out who the boss is there. Now,
I think anybody, though, who knows us is going to have a much more fair-handed answer with that. I will say, I think there are a lot of things that I get to decide, or I get to have, maybe slightly more say in, but I care so much about your opinion. I value and respect what you think and how you evaluate something. And sometimes it's very different from the way I do. And I think that it's the coming together for us, that sometimes you're the boss, sometimes I'm the boss. At the end of the day, though, we're rowing together. We're figuring it out together.
Yeah, I would say, not every decision is made jointly, but about 99.5% of the time we agree with each other's initial thought process, right? And so there's going to be times where Katie just makes the decision or I make the decision. Overall, though, when it comes to larger things, the general census is that I'm maybe a little too risk averse. I might like to take a few too many chances, and Katie gets a little nervous. This podcast...
No, you're not risk averse. You are pro-risk.
Oh, yeah. I have a high risk tolerance, not risk averse. Yes. That's right.
I think maybe I'm more risk
Katie's
averse.
more risk averse. So I have a high risk tolerance. That's the right way to say that. So what tends to happen is I get up and have all these lofty ideas about what we should do, and then I talk to Katie about it, and Katie pulls me back. And then more recently, we talked to our director of operations, and then she kind of meets us in the middle somewhere that's a little safe but a little risky, and we go about our way. Sound about right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if it's 99.6%. Is that what you said?
I think where we usually agree with one another.
Well, and I think our end goal is always going to be the same. So that helps. How you get there, that can be different.
So what has working together taught you about your wonderful husband that being married to me did not?
Oh, I feel like because our life started so much in law school that it's been very natural for us to be working together. I've always really enjoyed your sense of humor and the way that you're able to, kind of be silly and be able to make things, especially like kind of intimidating or scary things, not so much. And I think seeing you in the business setting and being in it with you for that has made me realize that more so.
So that's true. I do like to have fun, and I do joke around at the office. I think our staff enjoys it for the most part, and I carry that on even when I'm in court. I'm very talkative with judges, and I'm very talkative with juries and all that kind of stuff, even witnesses. So I try to. I would say the one thing that working together taught me about you that being married did not was your level of determination when you're fighting for someone is just another level, right? It's like that much. So like if our listeners can imagine, I mean, Katie's a great mom. She's a prototypical mama bear. If someone comes after her kids, she's going to be the first one, swinging the bat and making sure no one's coming close. And she can turn that on the kids as quickly as possible too if they're out of line. But when she goes to bat for her clients, especially people who they're in need, right? It's a whole other level. Or when you're protecting or working with your staff, a whole other level, right? And so that's been an interesting thing to watch evolve and kind of see how you do that. That's been wonderful. What's one piece of advice you would give someone in the Fox Valley living in our communities about going into business with their spouse?
Communication is so incredibly important. And, there are days when I think it's natural that you have a hard day at the office, you have a hard day at home, and you don't really want to have to, deal with it. But when you're married to your partner, when you're married to the father of your children, and you have to see them in the office, you kind of have to talk through stuff. You have to figure it out. And I think just being able to communicate and being able to trust that other person with really what you're thinking and know that you're going to figure it out together. And keeping that unity is so important because it's hard to be different people. We come from different places. We have different backgrounds. We do have different, in the same way that our practices are kind of different as far as what I'm facing as the challenges in my practice and the challenges that you're facing in your practice. I think that communication with each other to say, hey, this is hard, or hey, this is easy, or this is how I approach this. And then I think also translating that with our kids as well. Hey, I really think that the right thing to do for this child is this. But you come back and you might say, but that's not how you raise boys. That's not how you raise a man. That's part of being a boy. And I can say, okay, well, that's very confusing. And I'm going to have to trust you on that, So it's communication and trust, I think, are so integral.
Yeah. So I think communication is important, both when you're married and when you're in business. I would say that the best advice I would give someone in the Fox Valley going into business with their spouse is that inevitably one of you is going to be more forward facing. There aren't going to be two people out there that get seen constantly, right? And so in our business, Katie does pre-litigation work, which means she's sitting in the office, running around talking to clients, trying to resolve cases, helping clients with their problems, pretty much from sun up to sundown and longer. But as a result, Katie doesn't get to court as much, and Katie doesn't get to interface with other attorneys, and she doesn't interface with the public quite as much as I do. So it kind of leads to this incorrect assumption that I'm the driver of the firm, right? And so unlike when you're in business with other partners or when you're in business maybe for yourself, you can't just hog the spotlight, so to speak, right? You have to share the wealth. And so one of the things I would advise couples going into business here in the Fox Valley or really anywhere is that whoever is forward facing and whoever is behind the scenes more, make sure that you each share the spotlight. Make sure your marketing materials, make sure your communications to your clients and into the community comes from both of you, not just one of you, right? Make sure that you have a mechanism to share the recognition of your success.
Well, and I think that goes along with something that you do that makes me fall in love with you more every day is, you build me up, right? So I think that you are tremendous at, and you're talking to somebody and kind of explaining our world and oh yeah, I work with my wife and there's normally this grimace that comes over people's faces and you're like, no, it's actually really good. And I think that is maybe that other part to the communication is, making sure that you're really liking who you're working with, liking who you're married to, and respecting them,
That's good. That's good. All right. Now I want to transition a little bit as we're progressing today. Let's talk a little bit about what we did to break through in the Fox Valley, in St. Charles, Geneva, and Batavia. So when you first came out here and started to really build a practice, it wasn't as an owner, it was as an associate somewhere. But from that time period to now, what strategies have you used to get your name into the community and really build a brand that's not just Feagans Law Group, but is Katie and Feagans Law Group?
Or you mean when people call up and they say, I want to talk to Katie, and you're like, no, I can do this too.
Well, so, not to cut her off, but oftentimes people call and they say, I'd like to speak to the head of the Katie Feagans Law Group. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, she's busy. I can help you too. And they're like, no, I want to talk to Katie. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to hold on. And they're like, okay, I'll wait.
So I think it was getting involved in the community, right? So it started with this really lovely moms group that before COVID, we would meet up with our little ones, and it was a fun activity, and it was, exploring our community, right? And it would be, oh, there's this new bounce house that has opened up, or they have library classes, or this or that or whatever. That was where a lot of my early cases came from. And then over time, when you have more and more contacts and more people in the area, they're like, hey, oh, this happened to you. Hey, they can help you. Here's their contact information. But I think it's getting involved in the community, being in the different organizations that we're involved in, and finding a way to connect with your neighbors, finding a way to build your network has made all the difference, I think, for us.
I would agree 100%. So, when I first came out here, I joined a practice as a partner, but my name wasn't on the door. And so when we left, we had a unique obstacle, so to speak, that we had some business that was already with us. But when we were looking at how we got new business, we were trying to determine the correct path. Is it internet advertising? Is it traditional advertising with billboards or in the newspaper or what have you? Do we go with referrals? Like how are the cases going to come to us? Where are they going to come from? And I would say by and large, the most effective strategy we have had is branding ourselves within the community. And branding comes from a lot of different ways. So we talk about service. Well, service in some ways brands you. It's not the purpose of it. It's just a byproduct of it, right? And so when Katie talks about service, Katie's super involved in a number of charities and organizations. She's been on the board of Kane County. She's involved with a charity that helps refugees called Radical Love. Within our community, but a little outside, Katie is the vice president of the women's board at the Brookfield Zoo, which is very, very prestigious organization. And Katie does a lot of great work over there, not just with the zoo, but the zoo outreach. And a variety of other. Katie's been on the board of the Kane County Bar Association, as have I, and I've been involved with the St. Charles Chamber of Commerce and all that kind of stuff. And the opportunities you get to interact with people and to help people and to help the community, that's the primary driver. But the net effect is that people start to remember your name, right? And so we have done the other, traditional advertising over the years. I would say, though, if I was talking to a Fox Valley professional coming out here for the first time, the biggest thing I would tell them is that, by and large, we are a referral-based community.
Totally.
I think we've learned that more and more and more. The best business we get and the best business those professionals close to us generally get are because someone told them, hey, if you need an attorney, go talk to Katie. Hey, if you need an HVAC company, go talk to this guy. If you need a realtor, go talk to this gal. All those different types of things. We are, by and large, a referral-based community. And that's not to say Google ads might not work, or that you shouldn't have a website, or that you shouldn't do other types of advertising. But if you're only doing those other types of advertising, I think you're missing an opportunity to really grow and ground your business in the Fox Valley.
I agree with you absolutely. And I think that there is a certain amount of just engaging in the world or engaging in business that you have to do. You have to have a website. You have to have a landing page for people to make sure that you're legit, right? But the best thing about our community is our community. And by having, people help each other. And I do think of a referral as helping someone. Or when you're walking down the street and someone says, and I love this in our area, hey, that you look great. That shirt is wonderful. That this or whatever, your hair looks so great. To be able to say, oh, I go to this person and they're wonderful. And there's a legitimacy to that. And there's also the goodwill, right? And we're building up our whole community. And I think making these little differences, adding to the good, that we get the benefit of that because we live here. And I think that's one of the best parts about growing a business is that you kind of get to do that all day long. And helping the people in your community is especially rewarding because they get to stop by our office now. We do get to see people face to face. We get to run into them at different places and to say, hey, it's so good to see you. So glad things are going well, or I can help you with that.
Yeah, and that's a great, again, reminder that this podcast, Behind the Fox, is going to be centered on talking about those professionals throughout the Fox Valley, business owners, community leaders, those people that do drive those types of referrals and understanding who they are and what their business has gone through and the challenges and the excitement that they face on a day-to-day, week-to-week level. So that's very exciting. Okay, so we are rapidly approaching just some rapid fire questions here that Katie and I are going to answer for you about some of our favorite things within the Fox Valley. So I'm going to start with Katie. Katie, favorite restaurant in the Fox Valley?
Oh gosh, there are so many.
Okay, I'm gonna help you. You can give me 4 honorable mentions and your favorite.
Okay, so the moment I am currently obsessed with the chicken kebab bowl at the Alchemist
In Geneva.
I am so enjoying the cocktails. I think universally people can say barrel and rye cocktails. They're pretty fantastic. New and dealing with gluten issues in our house, there's this place called the Ugly Noodle where it is a gluten-free deli and fresh pasta bar, which pretty good. And then, okay, so then you said a fourth one.
Well, you don't have to give me 4 honorable mentions. So you got to give me the honorable mentions and your ultimate favorite, though, right?
God, there are just so many of them. I think any of the Giamia Group restaurants are always a hit with us. And working with them, having them involved with some of our events and stuff like that, they're spectacular. And then, I don't know, your turn.
My turn. All right.
Please.
Well, she's avoiding very carefully trying to actually say what her favorite restaurant is. And to be fair, her appetite changes, so it might change from month to month.
Well, and I'm such a foodie that, I love all of the things.
So, listen to this, listeners. This is how you have a very happy marriage. My favorite restaurant is my wife's kitchen. Right? But if she's not going to cook for me, I would like to go to places like Zaza's in St. Charles. I mean, amazing, amazing food time and time again. Niche in Geneva. I mean, the bourbon, the menu, spectacular.
The Brussels sprouts.
The Brussels sprouts, yeah. So I will, listen, I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy, right? Generally, I will eat the vegetables if I have to, but a meat and potatoes kind of guy, got to get the protein in. But I will say that about 10 or 12 years ago, I first had the Brussels sprouts at Niche where they put all the sauces on it, the jam, and it's fried and blah, blah. It's just spectacular, and it continues to be so. And then that dish exists elsewhere, including in my wife's kitchen.
Because you came home and said, hey, can we do some Brussels sprouts? And I was like, well, I'm sure I could find it somewhere on the Food Network.
Yeah, 100%. All right, next rapid fire question. This is an interesting one. Favorite spot on the Fox River? Do you have one?
I love the bridge in Geneva where, you have the water flowing so strongly. And I think seeing water move is just fantastic to me. How about you?
So mine centers around golf. If I was going to say my favorite spot on the river in the Fox Valley would be along the edge of Potawatomi Park Golf Course there in St. Charles above the dam. That golf course is, by the way, if you're a golfer and you have not golfed this golf course, it's a 9-hole course. It's a Robert Trent Jones Jr. design. It's a spectacular design. It's a spectacular golf course. It's a real gem. So that would be my favorite spot along the Fox River. All right. So our office is located in Geneva. We're on 3rd Street above Barrel and Rye. Besides the location of the Feagans Law Group, which is no longer a secret, what is the best kept secret in Geneva?
You go first. I need a minute to think about that.
So I would say the Walrus Room is the best kept secret in Geneva. It's kind of tucked away. I mean, most people know about it, but you kind of don't think about it initially because it's tucked away kind of on that strip mall where Riley's Drug used to be in the back. So I would say Walrus Room, which serves great food, great cocktails, all that kind of stuff, is probably the best kept secret.
I like the Walrus Room. I think it's pretty fantastic.
I'll give you one more. Cocoa Bean. And particularly, so Cocoa Beans on 7th Street, particularly Cocoa Beans almond croissants.
I can get behind this 1,000,000%
100%.
agreed. Yep.
So when we moved over to 3rd Street, we still had Graham's 328 there, the coffee shop. And so that was kind of where I went to get my coffee fix. I may or may not drink too many coffees each day. But when they left, then I kind of switched over to Cocoa Bean. And I enjoy their lattes, their coffee, but those almond croissants are out of this world.
I love it. We had it the other day, and somehow what I brought was like super warm from the oven. And the entire office agreed. It was next level. So yeah, no, I agree with you on that.
One Fox Valley business everyone should know but probably does not know, besides Feagans Law Group. Well, it's you. I'm putting you on the spot.
I know, and I don't have that page in my paperwork, so I can't look at it.
You didn't make any notes, huh? Nor did I. So I would say, I don't know if it's a secret, so to speak, but there's on the coffee chain, because I drink a lot of coffee and I am no stranger to bopping around and finding different locations. there's a wonderful little coffee shop in the plaza of Dotson Place where we office, Storybook Cafe. And Storybook Cafe is fairly new. I think it opened in like December. And I hesitate to say it's a unknown type of thing because it's packed constantly. But every time I tell people about it, they still don't quite know what I'm talking about. But they have wonderful coffee. And if you're a matcha type of person, they've got that as well.
That is my new favorite thing. And for somebody that in the past has thought matcha was not worth the effort, theirs is spectacular, but you have to get it sweetened. You can't get the plain matcha, and I don't even do a lot of sugar. And you need to have the house matcha.
Okay. Now, our production staff in the next few questions was trying to get us in trouble. So, neither Katie and I are actually from the Fox Valley. So Katie is from she's technically a Hoosier. She was, so don't let her tell you otherwise. She was born in the great town of Chesterton. We're out of time.
I think we're out of time.
She was born in the great town of Chesterton, Indiana, and she's a Hoosier. But her family's from Fox Lake, right?
I would say chain of lakes because like my dad's family is from Fox Lake, but my mom's family is from Libertyville.
You mean Lake Bluff?
Lake Villa and Libertyville in that area. Yeah.
And I'm from downstate near Springfield, in a town called Oakford, 300 people. But in these production notes, our production staff wants us to choose one. Geneva, St. Charles, or Batavia as the best town.
I think we just picked the Tri-Cities.
Yes. So you have to understand our perspective. So I know locals have a favorite. They're either going to be, St. Charles, Geneva, Batavia. If you've born there, they're all rivalries in school and everything else. But for those, for those carpetbaggers like us that come in from the outside, we view this as like one town. I've had a lot of conversations with people about this over the years. If you're not from the area, the reason you come to this area is because of the Tri-Cities, because of the Fox Valley, not because of one of them necessarily, although some people might. So I'm like you. I'm just going to choose the Tri-Cities there. And the next questions, they just keep doing this to us. One word for the Fox Valley community. Oh, it's as a whole, I guess. I would say one word for the Fox Valley community is community.
Same. That's right where I went.
And then the last rapid fire question we have for today is the one thing that's missing from the Fox Valley that should exist.
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I'm just going to put it out there. I think that we should have a full-on Nordstrom's.
That's a good point. So, I think the shopping, the malls, like the traditional malls have left us, right? We still have great shopping areas. A Nordstrom's would be helpful, that kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, we have a lot. We've got pretty much everything you would need. I would say it would probably come down to like a franchise or something like that we really don't have here, like a Shake Shack or like a In-N-Out or something like that. We don't really have a lot of those in Illinois, but that would be kind of cool to have in the area. I would also say, although we had one in the past and you can still get them at like a Jewel and this, that, and the other.
Oh, I know where you're going
Krispy
with this.
Kremes, right?
Yep.
I mean, those donuts were spectacular. So those are the types of things that I kind of think about. Otherwise, we kind of have everything we need.
Well, I just remember back in the day when we were living downtown and I would come out, that we had a Krispy Kreme out here when I would be covering court. And I don't know if you remember, I think I brought you home some, but they would be like fresh from the conveyor belt Krispy Kreme.
Yeah, I think the Krispy Kreme was in St. Charles or Geneva where Skippy's is now. Mm-hmm. I love Skippy's. Skippy's is good too. Good chicken sandwiches, good food, all that kind of stuff. But Krispy Kreme, yeah, that would definitely be an option, 100%. Yeah. All right. So, Katie, I think that's all the time we have for this episode number 1. I want to thank everyone for taking some time to listen to us. I'm sure there were a few stumbles along the way. I hope we gave you a little bit of information about who we are, what we're about, and what this podcast is going to be about. Again, Behind the Fox. So we're going to be bringing you up to date on the behind-the-scenes lives of the people that kind of make the Fox Valley run. We're very excited about that.
It's going to be great. Thank you.
Thank you again. Have a great day.